What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with New York Hardcore Chronicles host and Incendiary Devices, Drew Stone. Thanks for coming on the show today, man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's so great to be able to have you on the show. I've wanted to actually have you on the show for quite a while, from, attending those hardcore matinees that you were throwing at Bowery Electric that are super fun, and, just constantly watching your podcast and seeing everything. New York hardcore is something I've talked about with everybody on the show, whether they're from New York or they're from freaking Sweden or Australia. It's always a subject matter that we talk about, so it's great to be able to have you on here. But with the Incendiary Device album that we got last year, it's so freaking awesome because it goes to show that hardcore in its truest form and in the traditional sense is far from dead. When I'm hearing, Negative Attitude or Accelerator, Punisher, Divided State, it really is just reminds us of hardcore. What was the sort of intention? Was it just, let's make a hardcore album and that's it? Or was there something was there kind of like a goal going into it?
Well, thank you. We're very proud of the record, and we're really, really happy with the way things turned out. And appreciate that Bridge 9 Records, picked it up and put it out. I think the Incendiary Device band is just part of the lineage that I've been involved in. That really, just goes back to the first hardcore show I ever went to in 1981, where I was incredibly inspired to be a part of that exciting community and culture. I was in my first band, the Mighty COs. Then I started the High and the Mighty here in New York. Then I joined Antidote. And then, years later, a couple of changes with Antidote, we pretty much ended up kind of rebranding ourselves as Incendiary Device. So there's a direct lineage. I mean, once we started Incendiary Device, it really was a couple of the guys that were in Antidote with me, and we just kind of turned a corner on it. But that said, we really opened up a new door and went through it, new songs, a whole new thing. And I think Incendiary Device in a lot of ways kind of pays homage and harkens back to a lot of the early American hardcore that we love so much, like Minor Threat, early Black Flag, Bad Brains, Negative Approach. I mean, those are the building blocks of Incendiary Device. And I think our influences really come through on the recording. I really do.
What I like about this, because some people who may have a hard time, getting into hardcore, I would talk to them and be like, it's a little too raw for me. It captures that energy. What I love is this captures that raw energy of classic hardcore, but it has the modern, things that make it very digestible. Like somebody who may just be getting into hardcore, they could listen to this and appreciate it because it's easy enough on the ears. You know what I mean? It's a good gateway while also having everything we love about it,
Well, it's an interesting world we live in now, right? I mean, we're not kids, in Incendiary Device. So there's an inherent challenge involved these days in a bunch of, old, I hate to use the word older guys, starting a band. It's a different kind of world. That's it. And we're not the kind of band that's get in a van and play for 30 days straight any and every place we can. So, we're starting this band and getting out there. It's a different world for us also than, when I first joined Antidote or when I was in the High and the Mighty or whatever, it's like, not everyone. I can't speak, but most of the guys in my band, they got a wife, they got the kid, they got the job. I have some of that at this point, but I still pretty much lead a renegade lifestyle. But it's a different one. But we did really set out with this record to kind of have a lot of separation in the sound, which harkens back to the early hardcore stuff. It's not layered with guitar stuff. It's like, drums, bass, vocals, guitar. So that there's a lot of that was our goal with the record, is to have a lot of separation, which is kind of like a throwback sound, really. You know, because you hear a lot of bands these days, and the recordings are very processed. We did this kind of live in a room and with a couple of overdubs, and just kept the raw energy of of a hardcore show, pretty much. And there's no doubt that Incendiary Device is a hardcore band.
Yeah.
There's no. That's what we are. We're not like a metal hardcore band or this. We're Incendiary Device is a fucking hardcore band.
There's I not once. It's the first time in a while I heard a hardcore band be referred to and not incorporate that word crossover somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, not us. We're a hardcore band, like I said. Big influence, Minor Threat, early Black Flag, like straight down the middle, punch you right in the fucking face, type shit. So, it's really exciting and pleasurable to be in this band because, towards the end of the Antidote tenure, it was really a slog. It was really difficult. Everybody wasn't, people weren't getting along, and it just stopped, it stopped being fun for the most part. We didn't play that much. And, now I'm in a band with a bunch of guys that I like, that we hang out together, and there's some camaraderie. And that is almost a throwback to the early days as well. So it's really nice. We were just rehearsing last night, and we actually enjoy each other's company. It's not like, one guy shows up late and leaves early, and the other, it's like everybody's, we really enjoy each other. Once again, it's back to we're playing music because we love playing music.
And I get that sense in this album. And I wanted to ask you, you brought up something because I had a conversation with Mike Scandato about this where he, you're always a hardcore kid, whether you're 18, whether you're 80, nobody's a hardcore person or a hardcore senior or something like that or whatever. But you're always like that. Now, in terms of the inspiration behind this album, because it's been quite a lot, and I was, watching you, with the New York Hardcore Chronicles, hearing some epic stories on there and all the guests you've had, but, being so great at promoting, since the Madball show in 2021, which to this day is probably going to be the best hardcore show I've ever seen in my life, just because of everything.
The one in the park?
Yeah, that was
crazy.
That was the hardcore, because being. I was 27 at that time, and being 30 now, I didn't get to experience the hardcore shit in the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that. So this was really just with the rebellious nature that was behind it and everybody coming together and that, it really felt like I was able to finally say, wow, I experienced what New York hardcore really is like, because we, it was great to see all these hardcore bands, but this had that sort of vibe behind it that I always wanted to experience. In terms of the inspiration that you had with the making of this album and promoting shows and talking with a lot of people, you probably had to have some fresh inspiration stockpiled for the making of this, right?
Well, I think that a lot of it was, I'm graced with being in a band now with a couple of good songwriters as well, that makes things, a couple good proficient songwriters who, in the case of Tristan DeGraves is the primary songwriter at Incendiary Device, and he was in Antidote with me, and we played together in the Drew Stone Hit Squad, which is an acoustic bass kind of band. We've been friends a long time. He knows how to write stuff that I can sing and that makes sense for us. He understands sort of the vision of what we are. So, he's writing stuff that I can sing pretty good. And that's kind of a first. And also, I think with the pandemic happening, and I know everybody's written about the fucking pandemic and da-da-da-da, but a lot of our songs kind of deal with, or the songs on that record, a couple of them deal with sort of what's going on with the uncertainty of the world, what's going on with violence in the world, especially New York City. It's sort of this moment. The record captures that moment a little bit. A lot of the uncertainty and scariness that's happening in the world. It also deals with this shit, the
Yeah.
social media and and just, how detached people have become due to social media, and how dangerous social media has become in a lot of ways. And, that gets addressed on the record a little bit. So there's a lot of new the whole thing was just really new and fresh for me because, like I said, in Antidote, we were basically doing the same fucking set list towards the end for the past 10, 15 years. Like nothing's changed. So I'm fucking singing songs, from the 80s, a couple from the 90s. Incendiary Device is all fresh new ideas, vibrant and exciting. So everybody's stepped up and is just, really excited about it. And it's nice that, people have been coming to the shows and, we pack a wallop, when we play live, so.
It feels good because I think the Hard Times made a joke about this, like hardcore band in 2022 still writing songs about how much they hate Ed Koch or something like that. It's good to like have that sort of fresh subject matter behind it.
Well, that's part of like I said, it's an interesting world we live in, right? I mean, you talk about a lot of people go, and this is we address something. A lot of people go on and on and on with all this, back in the day bullshit. I was there and you weren't, and this and that, and really like the way I see it is these are the good times right now, and people, I want to be in the present, looking down the road to the future. So I'm not that interested in accolades from the past. I'm more interested in being coherent in the present and moving forward, into the future. And the record deals with that, a little bit as well. I think is like, let's not, let's give the whole, I was there back in the day. I'm old school. Yo. Oh, fuck all that.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't give a shit.
I'm just really glad that myself and younger generations are still able. I'm just very grateful that Life of Agony and Sick of It All and Agnostic Front are all, really just delivering epic music to this day. And that, you throwing those hardcore matinee shows at Bowery Electric was definitely making up for lost time for a lot of younger kids as well. So we're grateful for that. And this is sort of like part two to a question I asked too, because, you are a hardcore kid forever, like in a way. You're never going to let that leave your heart. But
that is true.
Everybody does, and this is going to sound kind of, everybody grows up. Everybody who was in these hardcore bands back in the day, some of them got married, had children. Sure. The world around them changed so much. They had career changes. We all find new things about ourselves. We all grow up in a way, whether we like it or not. So that has to almost change the outlook. Like I've had a conversation with a couple of people who were going to hardcore shows back in the day, and they would say, yeah, I kind of outgrew it, fell out of love with it or whatever. But like in the end, I feel like the meaning of what it means to be a hardcore kid, which you are forever, still changes when you experience things such as falling in love, having children, experiencing the world around you change and all that.
For sure. But I on the flip side, I think a lot of those, a lot of things that I got exposed to very early on in the first wave of American hardcore, especially like the DIY ethos, right? Get up, get out, and make something happen. Don't wait for someone to give you a handout, so to speak. Has basically been a guideline of how I've lived my life. I mean, the films that I've made, the independent films I've made, a lot of the music videos I've done, I've never. It's always been, you want to do it, and that was, I got exposed to that, from the early days of hardcore where, people would come in and it would be, start a band. And if you're not starting a band, start a fanzine or take some photos. There was room for everybody on the boat early on. And that was incredibly inspiring for a young person. And I think that DIY ethos has carried through my life because, I've had success as an independent filmmaker. I've had, success with my production company and all that kind of stuff. Even books I've put out and whatever, I've for good, bad, better or worse, most of it has been I've done myself, and I can trace that back to the hardcore thing. But that is in my soul. Yeah, I've been married, kids, and this and that. But there's, that's how I live my life. Like I said, I'm still a renegade. My life is not set up like a lot of other people's lives, and I understand that, including the guys in my band. It's like I don't know a lot of people that have lives like I do. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I'm very grateful. I make a living through my art. I don't have, that's how I make a living through my art. And, through the New York Hardcore Chronicles live show that I do, from my films, from, my book, from whatever. I mean, that's how I pay my rent and bills. So, I arrived at a place where, hardcore and music and art is my life. And, that's, I raised a kid. He's grown up now. He's in college. I'm not married right now. This is the path I've chosen. So, but I want to say also that there's a couple of hardcore scenes now, in New York City. There's like 5 different hardcore scenes, and they basically don't want anything to do with each other, which is really, really interesting. And I find it very sad because in the beginning, there was a real us against them mentality, right? It's like you found a hardcore dude or gal, like, that was like an ally, like, holy shit, you like Black Flag, like there was a real us against them mentality. Now, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of us against us. And a lot of it has to do with this fucking thing, and there's like there's a real young hardcore scene that wants nothing to do with the dad hardcore scene, which wants nothing to do with that, there's literally like a couple of hardcore scenes that don't want anything to do with each other, which as sort of a music and hardcore historian, I find really, bizarre, sad and disappointing sometimes, but that's the world we live in now, right?
It's a tribalism thing, I think, in the end, and I think in the end there will be sort of like a reckoning and sort of like a re-envisioning behind it. There was 2 more questions I wanted to ask for you. One of them circling to your art, actually, because being in a band, but also creating documentaries, being so visually oriented and whatnot, you are just a creative. You are what I would call the hardcore renaissance, man, if like in a way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like if Da Vinci was in Agnostic Front or something like that.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, but being such a creative and working in all these different mediums, is there a difference in the creative process, whether you're behind the microphone or you're behind the camera, etc.?
Well, for me, there kind of isn't. It's all part of this swirling mass of what I do. It's like I have, many things going on at once. Even, right now, right? I got my show, I got the band, I got 2 films that are in development. I've got another film that's doing the festival circuit. I've got, 2 books that are coming together. I got, so there's like this swirling mass of stuff, and one thing might move forward a quarter of a step, another thing will move forward a half step, another thing will go back a half step. So to me, it's all part of what I do and part of the creative life that I lead. I just did a voiceover for an animated feature film out in Hollywood. It's all kind of part of of my thing. There's not a lot of separation in it, I juggle a lot of balls, and there's certain things that I really enjoy doing, and you mentioned the Bowery Electric shows, and let me just say, for someone that might be watching that might not know what we're talking about, I do once a month down at the Bowery Electric, which is a block away from the old CBGB's. I do a free all ages Sunday matinee in the spirit of the old CBGB's matinee. and we're coming up on the 50th show now, because we started at the old A7, which is now Niagara, and then we moved it over to the Bowery Electric. But I got to say that brings me an incredible amount of joy.
I love those shows. I love those shows.
It's like, and I say, like, when those shows go well, which very often they do, for whatever reason, and I think it's because it brings the community and the culture together, and I know how important it is, and for certain people, for people that are there, it's special. That brings me out of everything I think I've ever done, that actually brings me the most joy. And I'm talking, I've done, accolades, documentary films, big music videos, this and that, been on stage. But when that is popping down at the Bowery Electric, it just makes me feel fucking great, man.
And it makes everybody feel great. The unity behind that. I haven't gotten to get to one in a minute, but I definitely want to get to one. The Happy Birthday hardcore rendition thing, I think, was one of the funniest things. Happy birthday, hey, 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 dude. Like that.
But yeah, that was we played. That was us.
That was your birthday.
Yeah, it was my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. It's our home. The Bowery Electric's our home, and great stuff. So all this stuff. I love making independent films. Who the fuck is that guy? The Fabulous Journey of Michael Alago, that I directed. That's on Amazon now. It was on Netflix for 3 years. That was an incredibly great experience. That film did very well, and I got to, John Lydon is in it, Phil from Pantera, Metallica. I mean, to be able to, Cyndi Lauper, to be able to work with those people was really big. The John Lydon interview, Johnny Rotten interview in there was really big in my work, in my personal
That's a
fucking
fucking dream come true.
The New York Hardcore Chronicles film's on Amazon too, and I'm very proud of that film, and got a couple other balls in the air right now as well.
And you led me perfectly into the final question I wanted to ask you, and it should have been really the first question, but I've been asking every musician in hardcore this that I've interviewed, because I feel like hardcore is just as much of an adjective as it is a noun, and it what makes something hardcore? Because, for example, I've heard people call bands that are not a hardcore band at all hardcore. Like, I've heard people say, oh man, this Deicide album, man, that shit is so hardcore. Or this Kill Switch Engage album, it's so hardcore. And I get it, because it represents, the heaviness and how hard it hits. But hardcore is also a genre. I, for one, never understood how a Slayer fan couldn't appreciate Agnostic Front, or how a Sick of It All fan couldn't appreciate Anthrax or Megadeth or something like that. They're both in-your-face hard forms of music. So, in the end, Drew Stone, I've wanted to ask you this for so long. What makes hardcore hardcore?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because, I was around in the first wave of the thing, and I remember when the word hardcore didn't exist. It wasn't what it's not what we didn't call it that. It took a while before it sort of found that name. So I've sort of seen this, things evolve, where hardcore is like, Minor Threat, Bad Brains, real triple speed, to different influences coming in. And, I've seen bands that are so far from what I thought would be a hardcore band go, we're a hardcore band. And I'm like, wow, really? I mean, I thought you sound like a death metal band to me. But these are all labels, right? And I guess, in a lot of ways, hardcore is a lifestyle. And, everything gets, how do you say, like the Star Trek episode, it gets into the Borg collective, right? Everything gets into the American lexicon. It gets, absorbed. And I think hardcore is for the most part, it's an attitude, I guess, but what is that attitude in 2024, right? I mean, so hardcore is whatever you want to make it, I guess. I mean, the lines are so blurred. You know, I'm hardcore, you're not, or this or that. It's like, oh, geez, you know, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, what's metal? You know, it's like things get blurred. What's metal? Is it Judas Priest, or is it, you know, things get blurred. But I think hardcore is a lifestyle. It's an attitude, to a certain extent. But you know, who really lives that?
Because like, yeah, and in the end, like for me, like I wouldn't necessarily say I follow the hardcore lifestyle in a way, you know, but like I love going to hardcore shows. You know, I love going to see Inhuman, and I love going to see Murphy's Law and a lot of these bands.
There you go.
But in the end, after the show, I go back to my job. You know, I like to, you know, I and live a life that's maybe not as renegated or something like that in a way. So like, but does that make me like less of a hardcore fan in a way than anybody else? You know?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I really think it's that, you know, it's been hardcore and the elements of it has been, like I've said, it's been absorbed into the lexicon of Americana. Like, you know, I always felt like, you know, hardcore is folk music in a certain way. You know, it's modern folk music. You know, the sort of the lyrics and the message, the community,
the dancing,
the culture. What's that?
The dancing.
It's all. I mean, we could go super deep, but you know, there's the way I see it. You know, there's not a lot of difference between the Grateful Dead and Black Flag. Yeah. You know, it's all, you know, community and culture and like you said, it's tribal and very similar. You know, very similar stuff here. But listen, people like to close ranks and go, you know, this is ours and what we have is better than, you know, what they have over there, and that's just human nature.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it's all the beauty of music, and I think first and foremost, you know, I'm a music fan.
Absolutely, and that's where it all boils down to. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, for such an awesome conversation. But I also just would like to thank you too for everything you do for New York City hardcore and giving younger hardcore fans such as myself and even younger a chance to really be able to experience the music and show us that it's still alive and well despite what the naysayers say. Thank you for proving to us that hardcore is alive and well.
Absolutely, and please come down. The nenext show is April 21st. It's at the Bowery Electric, and it's free and it's all ages. You know, who's Fahrenheit 451's headlining, Brick by Brick's on the bill, Kings Never Die. And anybody out there, please check out my show, my live video streaming show, the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. I've done about 310 episodes. And keep an eye out for what I'm working on. You know, I know it's no secret that I've been working on a biohazard documentary, and that's moving forward. So keep an eye out for that. My dramatic feature film, my Brooklyn heist film, Finders Keepers, is moving ahead, and a couple of books and just a lot going on. I'm an accessible person. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. Just look up Drew Stone, and there I am.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much. Everybody, Drew Stone. Be sure to check out the Incendiary Device album as well. It is absolutely kick-ass. Hardcore continues to live, and we will see you next time, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.